So you'll notice I've been screwing around with the position of my chair.
Hmm.
Yeah, sunlight issues,
You're also in a
and
shadow.
I'm feeling awfully groggy this morning, and I had a non-trivial fight with the microwave this morning. What do you suppose that means, guys?
It sounds like we lost an hour of sleep.
Yeah, I lost an hour of sleep, and all the clocks are wrong.
Just so you know, guys, it's a weekend,
Yeah,
save for the fact that we're doing this morning. But you guys don't have kids, so you're not losing anything. You can just sleep in anyway.
except for the show.
That's what I mean. Save for the
Yeah, you
fact
know
that
what
we're
you
doing
can do
this.
with kids, Mike? You just put them to bed like 15 minutes early for
That
four
doesn't
days in
work.
a row.
Kids have biological clocks, and they just wake up.
You're right, because kids aren't trainable at all.
They're
They're
not.
like these wild monsters. Like
I know
it's
you're
like
being I know you're being facetious, but it's true.
it's like Lord of the Flies when you walk into a preschool, really. Yeah.
I feel like there's an argument only one of us is qualified to have. Although
not
That's
Nick,
not
right.
unlike not unlike a bus versus self-driving vehicle discussion we were having this week, but
no,
that's
I,
another
I've
story.
I've driven for over an hour, maybe 2 hours in the last few days. I'm
That's
definitely qualified,
that's
but
impressive.
as we discussed, this is what we're going to talk about in the after show because otherwise it's going to take up the entire show talking about Google self-driving car because we now have video.
Also, I'd just like to go on record as saying that yesterday I drove for 10, so there's that.
Mhm.
Minutes?
And hours, Mike, hours. And when I worked at SGS Lakefield, that was at least a 3-hour round trip every single shift for that year. So
That's it's crazy that that
you just
happened.
uh, you just check your driving superiority there, Mike.
But yes, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about that because if you look at Twitter, we clearly have a lot to say on the matter. And I'm not sure we're actually going to get to any kind of consensus, but we're at least going to discuss the video. And yeah, but in follow up, we don't have that much follow up, so hopefully we can take less than 25 minutes to get through it this week.
What
Uh,
are we if not a venue for failed dialectics,
it's
Rob?
absolutely that's absolutely true. I was reading this week, and I'm pretty intrigued by all things space. The third theme of our podcast after science and technology is space,
Space.
and so we learned this week that the Mars mission is now tentatively back on. The Mars mission that was canceled by NASA, was it late last year or early this year? They they were about to kind of launch this mission. They were about to give it a go ahead to go, and then there was some kind of problem that was discovered either in software in the actual hardware of the lander or the rover or something, and so they had to scrub the thing, and they were saying that because of the way the orbits work of Mars and Earth, it was going to be a while, like they weren't going to be able to just do this, but now they've announced that the mission is back on. It has a new start date. It's I think 2018, but it's yeah they have to wait a couple of years until the orbits line up again to make it actually possible to get to Mars with any kind of quick uh, it's 6 months I think, even if they're ideal, so it's like a year and a half or something if they try to leave when it's not ideal. But yeah,
Hmm.
the it's called the Insight mission, and that's going to be launching in 2018 as opposed to this year. I think it was supposed to be around this time. It was supposed to be around March April of 2016, but it's pushed back. But it's at least not canceled completely.
Is there's not tectonic activity on Mars, is there?
No, there
So
was I think at some point.
so are they using like active seismic? Because it's a seismometer they were troubleshooting. They were
Right.
trying to solve, and it's the idea is to discover what's inside Mars as far as the interior.
Right.
And so the only way would be there to actually have a seismic source like dynamite or a vibration source
Sure.
or to just monitor seismic activity that occurs naturally.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
interesting to know what they're planning on doing.
Yeah, there might be seismic activity of some, like a small amount, but I'm pretty sure that I've read, maybe I'm thinking about the moon, but like I think it's kind of geologically dead. There's no activity in its core or anything like that. But
I
I
was
don't
going to say
actually
though, unlike driving, Mike actually might be the only person qualified to talk about this.
maybe. Although he doesn't, he's the one asking the question, so I don't know.
Because I thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, something, I mean, I imagine it would make sense to have a seismometer on your Mars lander, but I'm not sure exactly what they'd be trying to measure with it,
Hmm.
other
Seismic
than
activity?
Well, they're measuring
the
seismic
vibrations.
activity to
Yeah,
look to image the inside of Mars.
Yeah, sorry, that was just a subtle joke that just
It's
died.
yeah. Yeah, if they're going to be
What would
doing
they measure with a seismometer? Seismic activity, maybe?
if they're going to be doing any kind of, well, I forget, is it called sounding or ranging, where you like try to detect vibrations through the core to figure out what the makeup is? Like that's what they do on Earth.
yeah,
But if you don't have two kind of landing sites with equipment like across the planet, you're not going to really like. There's nothing to send signals and then
but
receive it unless you're sending them from the same spot and waiting for them to
but
come
that's the thing,
back.
you're not sending though, because if it occurs naturally, then that just happens
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, if you're going to be trying to figure out what's going on based on like explosions or activity or something, you'd have to either, I guess, wait for like a meteor to strike or something.
Right. Well, and generally the seismic sources aren't large enough
Yeah.
to make it across the planet. That's why you wait for earthquakes.
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
think that seismic, or all the seismic activity monitoring that goes on in California, do you think they know when a good MythBusters episode is coming up?
I doubt it. Although I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the last season. It just ended last week, I think, was the last one.
I have not.
They got some pretty big explosions going on.
The
Measured,
MythBusters have big explosions going
no, but I
on?
mean like
Well, I
extremely
never.
large,
Hmm,
like finale large.
okay.
And they were filming them with 50,000 frames a second high speed in 1080, like the absolute top of the line high speed cameras.
Hmm.
I
I
love the
have no idea.
Mythbusters. In case that wasn't already known, I'm pretty sure that's common knowledge, but who knows? Nick, you have some follow up here about food. I'm not sure why I follow up, but I trust
Uh,
you.
well, if you go back to our nutrition episode and you look at the notes, I
Hmm.
have notes in there on the Brazilian food guide, and I don't think we got to it in the show.
Okay.
But my question for our guest, whose name escapes me at the
Anna
moment,
on.
Anna on. My question for Anna was regarding beans, and at the time I had heard that the Brazilian food guide recommended at least one serving of beans a day, and I
Yeah.
wanted to know more about that. So it was just this past week that I thought back to that and went, huh, I wonder what the Brazilian food guide is actually like because it's been in the news again lately. So I
Hmm.
read the whole thing, available in English. Um, very interesting. And in this current edition, anyway, it's not so much that they say you should get at least one serving of beans a day, but they have like Canada's food guide. They have just little examples of things you can cook that are healthy
Okay.
or meals that you can serve that are a good idea.
Sure.
And so, I mean, they have breakfasts. The breakfasts are interesting to look at because a lot of them are nothing like what we would eat. But then almost every single lunch or dinner idea they have, almost every single one has rice and beans on the plate.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like it's usually a little section of rice, little section of beans, salad, and then, whatever, some other protein. They also dedicate like a good page or page to a few pages on beans themselves to talk about them.
Hmm.
and they say that they are very low calorie and very filling. So that is why they recommend beans.
It's worth noting too that their examples generally don't include meat. If you
They
look
do talk about it,
closely.
but yeah, not
So
not so much.
lunch the examples, one has a chicken leg, the other has an omelet, the other has
Are we not considering chicken a meat?
no, I'm just saying. So lunch is an exception. That one actually has some
Right.
meat,
Yeah.
but dinner has lentils, beans. This one has fish, and then beans and beans. So
Okay.
as
Beans,
the
beans,
protein
beans,
sources.
and beans.
Yeah.
It's like spam from the Monty Python skit.
Yeah. This food guide is incredibly detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went all out. And another interesting thing to note about the Brazilian food guide is that they actually take time to differentiate between processed and unprocessed foods. So they'll say like unprocessed is good, minimally processed is also good. So minimally processed being like ground meat as opposed to just a hunk of meat because it
Hmm.
hasn't fundamentally changed. It's just, a slightly different form or, you know, taking the core out of an apple, taking the peel off a banana, that kind of stuff. That would be classed as minimal processing and they're okay with the most part.
Right.
But Canada's food guide would say, a hot dog is the same thing as a serving of meat, which, you know, not
Isn't true.
really
Yeah.
Yeah.
from a nutritional standpoint anyway.
For sure. Huh.
Yeah, this thing is crazy, this food guide.
It's
I'm
beautiful.
impressed. Yeah. They'll talk about, preparation methods. It's like, don't use too much salt, don't use too much oil, add herbs to make it more tasty.
Yeah, like it's
It's I'm
it's
impressed.
really in depth. Like they did a great job. And then I go to the Canada Food Guide websites and it's like, are we even trying? Like it seems like we came up with this website in the mid 90s and decided that's it. That's where we're going with this.
Yeah, that's the new standard.
There's even like modes of eating. So it's like eating regularly, eating in company, eating in appropriate
Crazy.
environments. That's amazing.
Look at the
I
racially diverse table of people.
and it's so easy because it's such a diverse country. Like South America is probably like I think a lot more diverse than North America at least. Although that may be changing. I think it might be getting better, but I don't think they have as much of a problem kind of promoting diversity. I think it just kind of is a thing. Yeah. Well, I'm looking now at is it the Health Canada page on the food guide that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because it just follows the 90s Government of Canada aesthetic more than being stuck in the 90s. It's just following their terrible, outdated guidelines.
I mean this 80-page food guide from Brazil is great, but there's no rainbow. So
I was
how
looking
do
for
I
the rainbow.
know
Yeah.
how do I know what I'm supposed to be eating without a rainbow or a pyramid
Yeah.
or a my plate available? Like
Yeah.
You
I
what
uh,
is
was
you
this
say 80
madness?
pages. These pages are each 2 pages.
Okay, so it's an 80-page PDF
Yeah. Book
and
style.
it goes double up to 76 and then 77 is single-sided. So
Is it?
159-page food guide, I guess. Good Lord, it's like a book.
Yeah, it literally is a book.
Oh, hey, look, they have page numbers.
They do have page numbers.
150 page, because titles are a thing.
Yeah.
Here you go.
But yeah, much more detailed. I'm actually going to read this. When you started talking about it, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll go take a glance at it to see what I can glean. But it would take like a few days to read through this all. But I might actually do it. It looks really detailed and like not just talking about the kinds of foods, but like you mentioned, the fact that there's a difference between processed and non-processed foods.
They've also got a couple salad ideas in there that look pretty tasty.
Just all eat like Brazilians.
And walk like Egyptians.
I got no references coming. I'm sorry. I've let the show down.
There's no reason to. We don't need more references. That one took the cake. So
Cake being a highly processed food, by the way.
yeah, absolutely. Nick,
Is it though?
it is.
It can be.
I guess if you make your own cake, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be.
No, no, like the sugar is refined and the flour is often refined. And
But if you make it yourself, it doesn't have to be. You could use like whole raw flour, and you could use
Yeah.
raw sugar. You
you
could.
could.
Most people don't.
It's true. You could.
Nick, I have in our main topics ordered these things in such a way that there's no good segue. And so, speaking of no good segue, I want to move to your kale story here now.
The seaweed bacon kale.
How's that not a segue from Food Guide, Rob? Come on.
That's what I'm saying.
That.
So-
Never mind.
Okay, so Nick, I noticed the Brazilian Food Guide really recommends getting lots of fruits and vegetables. Now, I think you have a story in here about fruits and vegetables. Well, that's right, I do, Rob. Thanks. It turns out that that scientists have discovered or manufactured.
Discovered.
Yeah. Scientists have developed a strain of seaweed that is twice as healthy as kale and tastes like bacon, particularly when you fry it up. Apparently, when you fry this stuff up, like the bacon aroma really gets going. It's also funny because, you know, they were actually trying to find a good food source for edible sea snails or abalone,
Okay.
and my head went right back to The Simpsons. It's like, I didn't say I wanted abalone sandwich. I said I wanted an abalone sandwich. And abalone is snails, so rich people food, and so suddenly that joke is so much funnier too.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by this because the lead photo is a picture of bacon, but it looks like they're trying to say that it looks like bacon, but it doesn't. It probably doesn't look anything like bacon. It probably just looks like seaweed.
No, if you follow the link a little farther down, you will see the wait.
That's a type of seaweed.
Yeah, that's
it's-
not the
It's
seaweed.
a seaweed that
Yeah.
probably looks similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I imagine to get this to be kind of consumed mainstream, you'd have to they make seaweed paper, and they'd probably have to make something like that, but maybe a little thicker because they said it's reddish.
Well, I mean, you don't have to.
But to get it, I put this bacon seaweed on my sandwich. You'd want it to look like bacon to appeal to the hipster crowd.
Well, maybe,
I would
but
think.
you could also just instead of lettuce, just throw that on there.
Yeah.
Another brief little point on this is they say, you might have to try really hard to get people to eat seaweed here, but they do it in Northern Europe all the time. And I thought about it. I was like, no, people eat it here. I know for a fact some friends of my family are from Nova Scotia,
Mhm.
and I guess one of the last times they went back, they dedicated a section of their trip to going into the ocean to harvest more seaweed so they could eat it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a thing. People eat it.
Well, they sell dried seaweed, like the sheets that you're talking
Yeah.
about, Rob,
Yeah.
and it's just marketed as a snack. Like you just popped a sheet
Oh
into your
yeah,
mouth and eat it.
and
it's very salty. But,
Yeah.
well, because they salt it heavily.
Yeah, right.
You have to be.
But I mean, that's the Costco method. But I have seen people just go to town on the thicker stuff, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
Or I seem to recall.
Like the
I was very
unprocessed.
young, but sorry.
The unprocessed form.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they're buying it or not buying it. They're not buying it. That was the point of my story. They're
Right.
they're
Right.
pulling it out of the ocean and then
Right.
just I don't know what exact preparations go, but I'm sure it's not grind it down and then create a paper.
Right.
I'm intrigued by one line in this article where it says that they think that vegan and vegetarian markets may be interested. I think that's a really interesting kind of tweak because I feel the opposite. I feel like vegans and vegetarians would be like, I don't care about bacon flavoring, so why would I care about this just because it tastes like bacon? But maybe
No,
I'm
they
wrong.
care
Maybe
about bacon.
It depends why
bacon's
you're a
universal.
vegan or
Yeah.
vegetarian,
It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
If you love bacon and you've just been waiting to have something that tastes like bacon again, maybe this is the product of your dreams.
I mean, did you, Rob? Are you familiar with Daiya cheese?
No.
Okay,
Day of cheese? Sounds delicious.
Daiya, Daiya cheese.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Daiya cheese, maybe? Daiya cheese.
You're overthinking it.
Anyway, so Daiya cheese was an invention from a few years back, and I remember reading interviews about it because there was a whole big thing about how vegans and vegetarian, or it would be vegans, they often missed grilled cheese,
Mhm.
but no vegan cheese really melted properly. And so then they came up with Daiya cheese, and they're also offering Daiya cheese at like Panago Pizza now, places like that. Chains have picked it up just because it actually melts like normal cheese would. But I am here to tell you that it does not taste like cheese. The first time my sister was cooking with Daiya cheese, I walked into the kitchen and I was actually kind of disgusted at the smell. No, sorry, I wasn't kind of disgusted. I was actually disgusted. I was like, did something go bad and we're now cooking with it? And she's like, no, it's Daiya cheese. And I went, it's not on any of my food, is it? And she's like, no, I wouldn't do that to a non-vegan that wasn't suspecting it. You don't give Daiya cheese to someone who's not ready for it.
What's the appeal of this?
It's cheesy, but it's also vegan.
But how is it cheesy if it smells terrible? I guess there's some stinky.
It's the
Yeah.
closest thing to cheese. It also melts as cheese would.
Mhm.
So it's as close to that mouthfeel as you're going to get as a vegan.
I find this so interesting.
So
I miss the mouthfeel of cheese.
the point of this whole, well, I mean, a grilled cheese sandwich. I mean, people eat grilled cheese with Kraft singles, so
Yeah.
or like just processed plasticky cheese.
Right.
And so I really don't. Actually, you know what? It probably does taste a lot like that. But I don't know. Where was I going with this?
I don't know.
You're justifying the existence of Daiya cheese in light of it being disgusting.
That's probably. Well, okay, that's right. Because I was like, well, I think Kraft singles are disgusting too, but people eat those. But yeah, if people are willing to eat Daiya cheese because they miss cheese or cheese-like products, I'm certain they will eat this seaweed because it tastes like bacon.
I guess so. I mean, that seems anecdotally like a great reason to at least try to market this.
And that's really what we're shooting for here is anecdotal justification.
Well, that's all we have until they try.
Honestly, like I have a pea soup recipe that calls for bacon, but like bacon's expensive, so depending on the cost of this seaweed, I would happily just make the pea soup with this seaweed for the like smoky flavor to it.
Right. Yeah, I mean that seems reasonable.
Yeah, fruits and veggies, man.
Hmm.
But also, bacon is delicious.
You know what else is delicious? Plastic. To some organisms, anyway.
It's a lot like that processed cheese. I think they taste very similar.
Yeah.
Plastic and that processed cheese.
Yeah.
But
Thermoplastic plastics. Let's be clear.
won't someone tell us about an interesting organism that likes to eat plastic?
Yeah, so this is a story that I came across, and I don't know if you guys will agree, but I know that I have been saying this to as many people as will listen for a long time, that everyone is very concerned, and I mean rightfully so, objectively, that we're filling our oceans and landfills with plastic because there are no organisms on Earth. Spoiler alert for the future, or at least foreshadowing alert. There are no organisms that will break down plastic, so it just stays in our environment for. I mean, scientists have been theorizing 10,000 years, 20,000 years. It just will stick around. And as soon as I heard that, I was thinking to myself, you know what? Bacteria reproduce really quickly. They're very adaptable, and they will find an energy-rich food source and eat it. And
Life will find a way.
yeah, exactly. And so I knew deep down that there was a very high likelihood that some kind of bacteria would evolve to at least partially break down some kinds of plastic. And so the news that came out this week is about one specific type of bacteria. It's the second type they found that breaks down another, like a type of plastic. And it just so happens that the bacteria, the strain that they found, will or can at least start to consume PET, which is polyethylene terephthalate, I believe. It's the most common form of plastic. It's like the one that you can recycle anywhere. Like styrofoam is plastic. There's like polyurethane. There's PVC. There's all kinds of sort of niche plastics. But PET is the one that like your plastic water bottle's made of. It's the main plastic. And even though it's not necessarily a perfect process yet, they say it takes a pretty long time for it to break down even small amounts. That's what evolution is. Over multiple generations of bacteria, they're going to slowly develop and adapt to be able to break this plastic down perfectly. And then because there's so much plastic waste out there right now, these bacteria are quickly going to take over the world on a small scale, so to speak, and probably just break all of this down back into kind of, I don't know if it's CO2 and water, but we'll probably break this down pretty quickly and rid the world within a few hundred years of at least a scourge of plastic, and things will probably be okay.
It's worth noting that the first thing they discovered was a fungus, not a
Yeah,
bacteria.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the significance of this, is that bacteria seems to process it a lot faster than the
yeah,
fungus would.
yeah,
Um, Now I was thinking, because plastic is a petroleum product, that the bacteria, if they had previously been able to process petroleum
hmm
type things, and then they just adapted to the processed petroleum that plastic is.
it,
So, because I'm just curious about how this bacteria, because obviously this bacteria didn't come about in the last 70 years. Like, I'm assuming it existed in a,
it's been around. Yeah,
it's been around and then evolves to the point where now it can process the plastic. And it seems like, or this article said that plastic is the only thing it eats. It's not that it can, it's that that's all it eats is plastic.
yeah,
So that's pretty interesting that it got to that point where that's all it eats. It's not even like it maintained some elements of its previous diet,
yeah.
that it's now in the form where it only eats plastic. So I think it's it's definitely the kind of thing where you could just sprinkle it over a landfill and start breaking down whatever it is that's in there.
Yeah.
I'm imagining you walking around with like a salt shaker full of like instant yeast form of this bacteria, just shake, 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 shake. So, yes, it is perfectly seasoned. I don't know when you became French, Mike, but it happened. So I've posted a link from Nature, the journal Nature, from 2011 in the show notes.
Okay.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that was the first reporting of a bacteria that flourished on plastic in the Pacific Gyre.
Yeah.
Having said that, I read the first few paragraphs, and they did not harvest it from the Pacific Gyre. They harvested it from the North Atlantic, the Sargasso Sea,
Okay.
of wide Sargasso Sea fame, in which I talk much about the Sargasso Sea, but
Right.
there you go. But like Mike's right, there are also uh, microbial species that flourish on just raw oil from
Right.
earthquakes on the ocean floor or the wonderfully named seepage that can happen on the Earth's surface. Incidentally, um, I took Kaya to the Waterton Lakes National Park yesterday,
Hmm.
and way up in the mountains there, they have the first oil well from Western Canada, the first site of it anyway. And it's hilarious because, like, now we've got people like Mike who are trying to drill down to, like, with all sorts of fancy technology to get to really, really deep deposits in tricky areas to get to.
Right.
But the first well in Western Canada was, oh, hey, look, there's actual oil on the
Yeah.
surface. It's just seeping up to the surface.
Hmm.
I bet if we drilled down like 30 feet or so, we could get more oil. Production of that well peaked at a barrel a day.
Did it actually?
Yeah,
Wow.
like,
Naturally? Like without any sort of artificial lift? It just seeped a barrel a day?
uh, I don't remember. They eventually did put in like
Oh,
a
like a
pump
pump
jack kind
thing.
of thing.
Huh.
Or no, not a pump jack, but a tower. Mike, we need to talk about oil production because I know so little. But it was really cool. Like they said, the first steps to it were just kind of scraping off the surface, and then this is in Waterton Lakes at the top of a mountain, and then they would just like walk the bucket down on a
Filled
horse
with
or
crude
something like
oil.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which how far we've come. Like there was better technology in the movie There Will Be Blood.
I don't know that movie.
Great movie, by the way. Wait, what?
I haven't heard of that
Yeah, I
movie.
haven't seen it. It's too scary for
Okay,
me.
okay, you gotta. Like the way my cousin described this movie to me was he sat down in the theater with his friend who brought him to see it, and just you sit down and all of a sudden you're riveted, and then he's like, "Oh, geez, I'm getting warm. I better just take my coat off." He's like, we've been here probably like half an hour or so. I'll take my coat off." And his friend leans over, he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm getting comfortable for the rest of the movie." He's like, "The movie's over in 10 minutes." And it's like a 3-hour movie. Like it sucks you right in. You got to watch it. I
Huh.
love it. Kaya hates it, and you got to watch it.
Cool.
This is one of those movies that might suffer from title confusion
Yeah.
because there's a horror movie that has a title that's very similar to this, and I think that is this, but it's not. I don't know what I'm thinking of exactly, but
Yeah, I'm a little confused based on your description there. There Will Be
It's,
Blood is a movie about oil.
okay.
I'm an oil man.
yeah. So it's like the joke in, was that How I Met Your Mother? Where I think Robin's trying to watch 28 Days, but she was watching 28 Days
Yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the exact
It's like
same
that.
problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what the title of the movie is, but that is all I can think
Yeah.
of, and so I have avoided this movie at all costs simply because of. I mean, not saying I would have seen it otherwise, but yeah, I just
Yeah. It sounds interesting though.
yeah.
You gotta watch it. Also, Mike, I will come and work at your office, and then we can walk around going, "I'm an oil man,"
Yeah.
and it'll be hilarious because Daniel Day-Lewis.
You know what's a really good way to watch movies? Right now,
What's that, Mike?
all we can do is we'll go to a theater and pay money to watch it, as you did for
I
this
know, like
movie,
suckers,
right?
absolute suckers. Well, we bought the DVD and then watched it at
Okay,
home.
that's fair.
He bought the DVD and then we watched it at home.
But a lot of people go to theaters to watch movies.
It's true. It's the way movies are meant to be seen, according to Cineplex.
Sean Parker of Napster and Facebook fame has an idea that might change all this.
What?
Yes, and we've actually talked about this before on the show. If we buy into a system like this where
Yeah.
you can pay a price to stream a movie on opening day to your own living room.
How much would that cost?
They're proposing $50. $50
Really?
for the privilege of streaming a movie to your home on opening night.
Can I just say, if I had 4 or 5 people that wanted to watch a movie, I would do this in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I could see it. And that's the thing. I think you need at least 2 people paying for it, if not more. But I think 2 would be like,
The bare minimum.
depends on the movie, but yeah, I think you need at least 2 to make it worth
Yeah.
paying that, I think.
You wouldn't watch it alone.
No.
That would be a little much.
The idea is that they would stream the movie to a set-top box. So like you don't just stream it to a computer or an iPad. You buy like the Android TV type box that we talked about on the show last week.
Yeah.
Where it's dedicated to streaming this type of content through an app or whatever, and anti-piracy, so that you can't rip the movie once you stream it and that kind of thing. But it's an interesting idea, and we'll see where it goes. I'm intrigued though, because I think this is the future of cinematic experience. Personally.
Yeah, I agree with you. At least for the most part. Like I think there'll always be a spot for
for sure.
theaters.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think they're gonna have to start accommodating for this type of thing, because unless you have something like the Avengers or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or that type of franchise where people are gonna flood to the theaters and fill seats for weeks on end, then you're not gonna have that kind of demand for movies going forward, I don't think.
Yeah.
But then that being said, how many people are gonna pay money to stream just your B-list, celebrity movie? I don't know, right? So it's one of those things where theaters rely on the ticket sales of the big movies to pay their bills, but if they're able to stream it, then they're losing that revenue potentially.
Right.
So, and then they were saying that there's some sort of revenue sharing where the theater chains would get, so the distributor would take 20% of the fee, and the company itself, called the screening room, would take 10% of the fee. I don't know where the other 70% is going. To the ether, I guess.
Those horrendous streaming costs.
Yeah, apparently.
It's very expensive to send data, so far as I remember.
As far as we've been led to believe, anyway.
Super expensive, yeah.
Yeah. It's like shipping gold leaf by the Pony Express, I think.
Yeah.
Is what it's analogous to.
It's cents per gigabyte, Rob. Cents.
So expensive.
You're right. It makes sense to charge a few dollars a gigabyte.
Yeah. I'm gonna figure out the title of this movie that I'm thinking of, but Googling is proving totally unhelpful.
Well, knowing
Now-
Google search algorithms, you should probably use that movie that is There Will Be Blood, but not. See if that gets you anything.
Definitely. Or like title confusion, blood horror movie.
Yeah.
I had no idea. But yeah, this whole screening room thing, like, I love the idea. Like, I really do love it, but it is going to stop so fast because no matter how much copy protection you put on a movie, it will immediately get pirated if you are allowing people to stream it in. Like, it will get pirated in whatever quality they let you stream it at. It will be up on the internet within 1 hour of the first stream being available.
Versus the 6 hours it takes now.
I mean, if a screener leaks, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you're having like a camera footage video, that's not a good experience. That's like, I need to see this movie. I don't have $10. I'm willing to go through a very subpar experience in order to see this. But this could be like you could get all the audio. So if it was set up through 5.1 audio or anything like that, this could give you a perfect stream of the movie.
Right. And
So
some people have the theater set up in their basements,
Yeah, exactly.
which would be like amazing to actually see like a release movie.
The only thing I think that the only way this could work would be like if the copies were somehow watermarked. You'd have to agree to have like an ID number on the video somehow. But even then, it's probably pretty easy to get rid of. I don't know.
Yeah, just digitally edit it out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a perfect system. I would love it if it could work, but I think that piracy would prevent it. Unless they were fine with, if you're gonna pay $50, it's okay that you can pirate it. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like you said, it is already happening, the piracy, so maybe it's fine. Like maybe they're just okay with the cutoff.
Yeah. They'd rather make money
this.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Hopefully, I mean, it did work. Like things like iTunes, the fact that the iTunes store exists means that a bunch of people that would have theoretically looked for other ways to get music just click the thing to pay a bit of money to get it. So
Right.
It's not a crazy idea. It just seems like it might fail miserably. So we have a story here that is kind of still developing about artificial intelligence, and we all kind of wanted to talk about it. Nick specifically didn't want to lead this story about this the AlphaGo project and the AI made by Google that is powering this five match series between a computer and a human playing the board game Go. Is it a board game? I guess it's
It's a board game. Yeah.
Doesn't seem the same. Strategy board game.
It's not Monopoly. It's not a Monopoly board.
So for some background, the computer and the Grandmaster, I don't know if they call him a Grandmaster, but the Grandmaster equivalent of Go are playing a 5-game series of Go. They just finished the 4th game as we record on Sunday. I think the 4th game was on Saturday, or I think it's in Korea, so the time is different because I think it happened like late last night. And the computer won all the first 3 games, the best of 5, but they're playing all 5 games, and the human won the 4th game, which was kind of seen as a big computers, no matter how good they are, they're not
Suck
infallible. Yeah, go humanity. But so it won, which kind of parallels the Watson Jeopardy tournament that happened probably a couple years ago now, where the humans could theoretically score some points, but it's just like the computer, or the raw power of the computer and the internet is just pretty much unbeatable in the aggregate. So I don't know, Nick, you had some parallels you wanted to draw to the IBM Deep Blue chess match.
Yeah. First question: do you guys see me, or is it just a picture of me at the moment?
No, I see you.
Yes, we can see you.
You're backlit
Cool.
now, but
Yeah. So I've turned my camera on. Looking at my feed, I would have no idea that you can see me. I see your little thumbnails, but whenever the camera's actually focusing on you, it's just, the profile pictures.
it's interesting. No, everything looks fine from my perspective.
Yep.
Well, that's great. That's just great. But no, like you guys were talking about specifics within the Go match and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was actually funny because there were some parallels to the discussion we were having earlier,
Right.
with the game that they played, or Gary Kasparov played against Deep Blue.
Yeah.
I've just gone black half of that.
It looks like you don't want to be identified. Oh, that's good. falling
It was
apart.
like one of those 16-minute specials.
Yeah.
I can't discuss what I know about the Deep Blue game without revealing my identity.
Bobby Fischer, is that you? Oh man.
Uh, but no, there were some legitimately interesting things. Oh, there I am.
There we go.
There were some interesting things about the chess match. Like in one of the first games, the computer program actually made an error and just made an erroneous move.
Right.
Um, but when it did that, like it just threw Gary Kasparov for a loop
Mhm.
because he didn't realize that there were mistakes in the code or whatever. He just thought that the computer saw something that he didn't.
Oh.
When in actuality, it had just, kind of goofed on something.
Right.
And so I think he forfeited that match or something like that because he was just like, completely flustered.
Yeah.
But then he went home that night and he looked at, or like they had some simulation programs,
Mhm.
and he looked at that, and through the simulation program after that move, there was a scenario in which he could have been checkmated by Deep Blue in 20 moves,
Right.
and or 17, 20, somewhere in that range. And so like the best players can see like maybe 10 moves into the future. You're supposed to see 5 into the future if you're going to be competitive about it.
Mhm.
And so Kasparov was left with the rest of the tournament with the impression that Deep Blue could see like 20 moves into the future. So he just kept getting completely and totally flustered by it.
Huh.
Mhm.
So, like you were talking about how the guy in the Go tournament was like he lost the first game and then went, okay, now I can relax.
He lost the tournament. He lost the first 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's one of the things that computers are good at. Like, computers don't get emotional. They just
Right.
kill it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the benefits of the computers.
Yeah. The interesting difference between Deep Blue and the AlphaGo is that chess is a solved game. That like the computer knows all the possible combinations of chess. It knows all the possible games. It runs through
Does
every
it?
possibility. I don't think it necessarily was at the time, but it is now, as far as I know.
I was going to say, because it's, as far as I understand it, Deep Blue had a search algorithm in which it would focus on outcomes likely to lead to success by whatever heuristic they were using.
Mhm.
But you can't go through every single possibility because that's just monumental.
Well, not if it's a timed game, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm pretty. Maybe it's checkers that's a solved game. And maybe chess is just slightly less. But anyways,
checkers would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference being that AlphaGo has a neural network, and AlphaGo is a much more complex game than chess is. And so they're saying that there's something like the number of game combinations are more than the atoms are in the universe. Like it's just such a complex game.
Yeah. There's 2 times 10 to the 170th power.
Yeah.
Legal game position outcomes.
Yeah.
In which?
In Go. Which is and the number of atoms in the universe is 10 to the 80.
Yeah.
So there's
just a Google times more.
Well, it's a squared amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, over a squared amount of atoms in the universe.
Yeah, it's just insane. And so, yeah, you can't even compare the complexities of having to deal with this. But the whole point is that it does try to see a few moves ahead. It tries to see as far ahead as it possibly can, but it is willing, the computer is willing to kind of go off on tangents that no human ever would, just because there are strategies that have been shown to be the best possible strategies. And one of the things that the Go Grandmaster was saying after the first 3 is he knows now that the computer has weaknesses, the program has weaknesses, and if he can figure out how to exploit them, then maybe he could go and actually do that. And so what happened in the fourth game, they were saying, I was reading this really detailed, I'll try to find a link to it actually, a really detailed story of the tournament and specifically the fourth game where the human won. And he was saying there was one crucial move where he did something kind of almost bizarre. Like he made a move, and from that point on, the guys who were watching the processing of the AlphaGo machine were saying at that was the turning point for the computer. And when it had been winning, it had a lead, and then it kind of lost it. And the computer is actually designed to not fight to the death. It's not designed to go, okay, now I have literally 0% chance of winning, I give up, because that would just be horribly frustrating for any human. And so it was designed to give up around when it has a 20% chance of victory, because Go is the kind of game where you slowly build up, but like only having 20% chance of victory means that it would take a long time to claw your way back to winning.
Right.
And so that was at that point it forfeited, but it's like a 5-hour match. It's crazy how complicated Go is and how long the matches can take. Even like that's a speed game. You get a certain amount of time. I think it was like an hour or something on your kind of speed clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that time runs out, you get 60 seconds per move. And then like there are things like you can take a timed break, or if you commit time fouls, like time violations where you take too long to move, the time gets cut from 60 seconds a move down to 30 seconds a move. And so at the time that he won the fourth game, he had 2 strikes on his 60-second thing, and he'd used all his time, whereas the computer still had like 10 minutes left on its regular game clock. So like it was way better at time management, but the human still managed to pull this switch and win. So it kind of speaks to the flexibility of humans, the human brain versus computers that are kind of rigidly going to go after what seems like the best possible scenario at the time and could theoretically be kind of outsmarted.
Yeah.
It's one of the other interesting things about watching machines compete with humans is that humans play, well, chess anyway, but there are a lot of games where humans play just in a way that a machine might never do.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I think it is chess where there's so many strategic moves.
Yeah.
Where like grandmasters can just glance at a board and they could easily redraw everything there because they'd be like, oh, you're in the 4th move of a pigeon gambit or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so like humans have such well-defined strategies to these things, but a machine isn't limited to those known outcomes.
Yeah.
And apparently sometimes like what a human player will do to try and beat a machine is just behave more chaotically than they would otherwise.
Right.
Like open up more possibilities so the machine has to slow down and think more.
Right.
But it's really interesting. Also, I'm reminded of there's a story about a hockey player, and he was saying, like, he was a good hockey player, but he said, if I went down to beer league or college level or something like that, I probably wouldn't get as many points as I do because I'm used to playing with other people that also know the game at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
So when an attacker is coming at me, I know that he's probably going to do these things because that's the well-established way to play. But if you were in hockey or if you were in college or beer league or whatever, you have no way of knowing what the person with the puck is going to do because they just don't know the game like you do.
Yeah. I think poker is very similar too.
Yeah.
If you're playing poker with professionals and then you play with someone who's like never played before or has played like 3 times, it's like you have no chance because you never expect someone to, bet that way with that hand.
Mm-hmm.
So you fold and then they have nothing. And it's not like they're bluffing, they just don't know how to play.
Yeah.
Like or play the same way you do. It's not about knowing how to play, but they don't play the same way you do. So it's not a predictable and kind of easy thing to do.
It
I
turns
benefit
out
so
that
much from that.
it turns out that beginner's luck is just the Monte Carlo approach to play.
Yeah, yeah. I I found that so with poker, I find that if I do win, it's by playing uncharacteristically because there's no way I could win by strategy because I don't know the strategy. But even when it came like Mike and I used to play hockey all the time, just out, and oftentimes you'd get kind of guys who were on a team.
Mhm.
They were on our age, but they'd been playing hockey, like real organized
Organized
hockey
hockey, yeah.
for years, and we could sometimes get the better of them just because we did something that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Whereas the majority of the time they would just go around us or they would take the puck away. But we could get in there with a little weird move. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing for me in most sports when I play against somebody who is like they know exactly what to do for the sport. Like they would destroy a player who knows the same things that they do about the sport but isn't necessarily as good. Whereas like when I play volleyball on Thursdays, I can go up for a block where I literally jump up. There's no form here. There's no strategy. I jump up with one palm and I just put my hand where I think the ball is going to be when they hit it. And like I just end up palming, like blocking with one hand, which is nothing that any trained volleyball player would ever do, but it works enough that I'm going to keep doing it because
Right.
they don't see it coming. But yeah, it's not something that would be
Because they
part of
expect
any
you to just like do this, like hands straight up,
Yeah,
not
you're
like
supposed to
just yeah.
you're supposed to try to block the most area in front of
Right.
what they're trying to hit. But if I just kind of strategically try to guess where they're going to go and just put my hand there, it
Right.
works a surprising amount of the time.
Soccer goalie style.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I'm interested to see what happens with Game 5. I'm not sure when it is. I think it's probably like tonight overnight, kind of daytime or evening in Korea. And so it'll be interesting to see if the human player will be able to actually come back and at least maintain some dignity. Be like, yeah, I'm still pretty good. I'm still second best at least. Yeah. So I guess what we're going to do now is go to our after show. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm guessing you guys don't want to talk for hours about this, about the self-driving car, the Google car that got in a crash. But there's a few things that I want to say, and I'm sure there are a couple things that you guys each want to say about this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll post a link to the original Future Chat tweet where the conversation kind of went on, so people can follow down
Don't
the
do
train.
that. Just don't do that.
No, I'm gonna do that, and then if people are interested to hear the back chat, just so we don't have to kind of cover all the ground. But where we left it, I think on Twitter, I'll at least summarize where I left it, and you guys can add your thoughts. We really want to figure out. We want to decide, or at least kind of state our positions on what this means for the next 50 crashes that a self-driving car has. That's at least what I want to try to do. And so for me, the whole issue is that the self-driving car was sitting there trying to get into traffic.
Okay, wait. Are we doing this in after show or are we doing this now?
I guess we should.
Do you want me to formally end the show before we do this?
Yeah, end the show and then we'll go on to it.
If I'm smart, I will edit this so that it's right. We'll see
Or
if I actually decide
if
to do
you're
that or
honest, you'll just leave it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're
So
right.
there's that trade-off there.
So we'll find out if I'm honest or dishonest. The listeners may not know.
Or just
if
creative
I'm
editing. Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to this week's Future Chat. We'll be back right here next week with more science and tech talk. And you can head to unwindmedia.com/futurechat for past episodes of the show and much more. See you next time.
Ciao.
Toodaloo.
I'm going to creatively edit it.
I bet you will. But
So,
please don't
okay.
edit this. I would like to thank the lovely Kaya for allowing me, or tolerating really, me coming into the living room so that I could get a better connection, even though I usually stay out of the way and over there.
Yeah. Usually stay visible.
Yeah. Providing anonymity for this very sensitive subject.
Yeah. Identified only by his hair.
I've seen the footage from the Google car crash.
Oh man. So this crash, we covered last week the details of the crash, but for me, it wasn't really crystallized what happened until I saw the footage. And what I would really, really want is actually a third person's perspective, like a traffic camera or something, not a camera that's
Right.
mounted on the bus. Like I want to see, what I really want to see, I guess, is the Google car's environmental scan of how, just like how close they were, the bus's trajectory could have changed, how much room there was, because like I don't know if you guys have seen their simulated, like their environmental thing where it's almost like radar but in
Yeah, yeah, I've seen
around the
it.
Oh, I
car.
think I have seen that actually. Yeah, at
So
least a simulation
yeah,
of it.
how it identifies what's
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
Because to me, there's absolutely, unless there's something, because the whole thing of this crash seems to be that they decided very recently to treat some of these lanes that are actually one lane. There's no lane divider. They decided to treat them as two lanes.
Hmm.
That was really the crux of this, is
Well,
that it was
that's a
what?
thing that happens with very wide lanes,
It
though.
is, yeah. No, no, and they were saying in the article that it's crucial for development of this, that it be able to treat roads not just as rigid things, that you have to treat the road as other traffic treats it.
Yeah.
And so it was in the right half of this mega lane, this lane
Yeah.
that is big enough for two cars to fit in.
Hmm.
But there was an obstruction in the right half of the lane, like some sandbags around a storm drain, and so it was trying to go around them. And probably, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say it was probably trying to give it a wider berth than it needed to get around the storm drain. And to me, the way I watch, especially the perspective of the bus driver had no idea what was happening
Hmm.
until it had already happened. He was
Sure.
taken completely by surprise. And I actually went through. I mentioned on Twitter that I did a bit of research. So what I actually did is I went to is it San Bernardino, I think, uh, the traffic, the public transit systems website to figure out how wide the bus is. I went to the Lexus Wikipedia entry to see how wide the model of Lexus is, and then I went on Google Street View, or not Street View, I guess, but just a really zoomed in map to estimate how wide the lane is. And it really seems like there's plenty of room for a bus and that car to coexist in that massive lane without crashing into each other. Like it seemed like there was at least 2 or 3 feet of play. Like it was like it's like 16 or something feet wide, and the bus is only 8.5, and the car was only like 5.9 or something feet wide. It just seems to me like, as I mentioned last week, yes, the car is technically at fault. Nobody is arguing that, but I feel like the bus bears some responsibility, not legally, but responsibility for actually like going into the car. It's not like the bus was going and the car drove into the side of it. It was more like the car was slowly 2 miles an hour inching forwards, or inching like at an angle forwards, trying to get around the storm drain, and the bus came through, slightly overlapping with the space the car was in, and kind of dragged all along the side of it. Like if you look at the end of the video, there's a couple snapshots, and you can see the car left streaks all down the side of the bus. Like the bus, I think technically, and again, I would want to see more pictures. I would want to see more information, but it seems like the bus actually hit the front of the car and then kind of dragged alongside it, like the no no no. Okay, I'll finish. The parallel that I would draw is to like the Titanic and the iceberg. The Google car is the iceberg, and the bus is the Titanic. Like it kind of hit and then just dragged along the entire side of it, and it doesn't really strike me as much a side swiping unless I'm just misunderstanding the definition of the word side swiping. It doesn't. It strikes me more that the bus's responsibility to avoid this collision is much more than the car's responsibility to not kind of obstruct a lane. Mike, you obviously disagree with
Okay.
me.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think I better understand your position now that
Mhm.
we're talking about it live and in real time.
Yeah.
I I agree with everything that you said. except for the fact that you're saying that the bus bears more responsibility.
I didn't say
Because
more. I said some.
no, you said the bus had more of a responsibility to avoid it than the car had to avoid.
Yeah.
That's what you
It's
said.
very close,
Are you
though.
redacting that?
I guess I would modify to say it's very, very close. I don't know which is ahead, which bears more. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, can we all agree that the bus had the right of way?
yes,
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So a similar situation with this case is when you have construction or an accident and a lane just closes off, right? So then that lane of traffic has to merge into the other lane, right?
Mhm.
You guys have all been in that situation before,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So that is a situation where technically the free flowing lane has the right of way,
Yeah.
and the cars waiting to come in need to like literally wait for that car to stop and
Mhm.
let them come in, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those situations where the Google car should have, indicated it wanted to merge, so it, angled its
Which-
nose in,
yeah.
put its blinker on, because as far as we know, this car didn't put its blinker on, showing that it wanted to change lanes again. Because
the Google
as far as
Yeah,
it was,
blinker was on.
It's not changing lanes though, because it's all within the
Yeah.
same lane.
well, but that's the other issue is that is it technically a different
The
lane?
Google car's blinker was on.
Okay, so the car indicated it wanted to merge. At that point, it should stop, wait for traffic to stop, and then go.
Yeah.
From what the driver, like the person driver, and what the car's diagnostics indicated was that the car expected the bus to let it in,
Yeah.
and that's where this thing went wrong. Is you can't assume a car is going to do something.
Right.
You actually wait for it to do it, or you aggressively shoot in there
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not leave room
Yeah.
to get hit. So I don't know. That's
This
what I meant.
this happened to me yesterday on the highway.
Did you sideswipe a bus?
Not saying- I was the car that was in the lane.
Okay.
I was going relatively fast, and a car that was, I don't know, 10 feet, 15, 20 feet ahead of me, just decided it wanted to be in my lane. And I would have hit it if I had not changed my trajectory or speed. I had the right of way, but I also have the responsibility to not cause an accident.
Were you
if
on the
possible.
417?
Yes.
So Rob, did you honk
Okay.
and give the guy a finger?
I did honk. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't make any gesture, but I was like,
Okay.
"Excuse me, I'm
Yeah,
here."
right.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on, guys. I've used the talking stick. Come on now.
Sorry.
So first point on that is this continues to support my hypothesis that Ottawa drivers are not capable of handling a 400 series highway.
No, they're not.
I've never seen such bad behavior
Mhm.
as on the 417 and the northern part of the 416, where you routinely see cars driving down the wrong way on the 416.
Oh wow.
Seriously?
Yeah, we've seen it a few times now.
Wow.
It's just, I don't know what it is about northern latitudes within Ontario, but it just completely cripples the ability to handle the
Northern.
400 series.
Northern in air quotes.
Northern, southern.
More northwestern
Yeah.
than the 401 usually travels.
More than Toronto.
So
Yeah.
it's just you get too far away from the 400 series, you just don't know how it's supposed to work anymore.
Yeah.
That
I have,
appears to be what happens.
I have a bunch of experience with cars. Like since I got my full license, probably a little over a year ago now. I can't remember. I've been struck by the number of people that get onto an on-ramp.
I don't think
then-
struck is the right word to use here, but
It kind of is.
Shocked, perhaps?
It's fascinating to me the number of people that get on an on-ramp at 50 or 60 and then stay at 60 just the entire length of the ramp, like right in front of me.
Right, yeah. Instead of
And then I'm sitting
accelerating.
there waiting until I can merge before they do, and then just gun it to get up
Yeah.
to the speed of traffic. Like it's crazy. And so this is the kind of thing that the Google car has to not think that it's dealing with perfect drivers. It has to deal with imperfections, and that's the problem that it couldn't handle. Is that in a reasonable situation, the collision wouldn't have happened because the bus would have just not hit it. Like that car, if you watch the video in slow motion like I did, that car over the course of the 20 or so, maybe even more than that you can see ahead, the 20 or so feet, 30 feet that the bus has to kind of adjust its speed, the Google car moves maybe 6 inches. Like, it would have been very, very close to a collision, even if that car had just had its blinker on and was sitting there not moving. It would have been super, super close. The fact that it was inching forwards like a couple inches every 5 seconds is not what made that collision dangerous. It was the fact that the bus was super, super close.
There's also, like, watching the footage of what happened. It's also totally, like, what I hate about bus drivers.
Yes.
Because they are operating a very heavy vehicle, but they do not operate it as if it's a very heavy vehicle.
Not at all.
Like, so what happens is it was approaching a stop way too quickly, had to slam on the brakes, and then, you know, traffic proceeds as normal because had he actually been traveling at a reasonable speed, he wouldn't have had to, you know, slam on the brakes like that. But it left a wide open space that the Google car then thought it could get into.
Yeah.
Because I could totally see the algorithmic mistake where it goes, oh, that bus is clearly stopping and letting me in because the bus was definitely stopping. But then, you know, bus driver, so sees that a car wants to get in front of it, and the bus is like, oh, I think not, sir. I don't believe I'll be letting you in. And so just jams on the accelerator, and by that point, the algorithm has made its mistake, and that was it. Like, I don't know. London, too, the amount of times I leapfrogged with an LTC bus was way too high.
Yeah. I'm assuming you're talking about when you're on a bike?
Yeah. Because I didn't actually drive in London that many times. Yeah, I definitely leapfrogged London Transit Commission vehicles because, man, they slow down, they stop, they collect people, and then they just hammer on the accelerator because they're like, I need to get to the next stop before that bicycle does. Screw him.
So I have a fun anecdotal story of a bus, like a articulating bus and a bike that I saw. I was a pedestrian at the time. So the bus was pulling up to a stop, like right up to the stop, so there was no room for any bike to get through. But there was a bike that was up alongside the bus, and it literally like cut in to the bike area, like the area that the bike would have been using, and then started to move parallel to the curb. Like it effectively squeezed out the bike. The cyclist had to get off his bike and jump out of the lane so that it didn't get just like clobbered by the bus. Like it was ridiculous. I've never seen a bus driver act so recklessly.
Was the bike trying to pass the bus in its same lane?
The bike was on the right side of the bus as the bus was coming up to the stop, and so the bus came up to the stop, but they were already beside one another, but the bike was near the end, like near the back of the bus.
Right, but the bike shouldn't have been trying to squeeze past the bus to begin with.
It wasn't trying to squeeze. They were just They were just going side by side, and then there happened to be a bus stop.
Right, that's not legal though.
What do you mean that's not legal?
The bike and bus should be sharing the same lane.
What? What do you mean? The bike rides along the right side of the road.
What? Not next to other vehicles. It gets its own space.
What
so
space?
Its own lane?
You think a bike downtown should just take its own lane no matter where it is?
Yes.
No.
What, Nick? Am I not right here? Don't bikes get their own lane?
So normally, like, there's a bike lane. Yes,
No. That's not like they get their own width. Like a bike should be treated as a full width vehicle where
a bike gets 1 meter from any obstructions.
The bike is legally entitled to take the lane. Like,
right.
It is a vehicle.
Right.
Yep.
But like the bike also rides as close to the curb as practicable.
Right. So for vehicles
to
pass it.
If there's a clear path, like I don't know the actual legality of it, but if there's a clear path straight ahead, as there often is when you're riding a bicycle, Like they often make it. If I'm
Yeah,
approaching a stop though, like a stop and go situation, I routinely get away from the curb and into
yeah,
like the actual lanes of traffic, especially if it's a four-way stop and I need to participate in the turn-taking behavior that happens.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, otherwise things like that could happen.
Yeah. But Rob, in your story,
Although,
someone wasn't following the rules properly.
well, in that case, I would assume it was the bus. The bus overtook the cyclist
That's what I said. Yeah, I
and
don't know.
then just pulled ahead and cut it
Right,
off, and
right,
then
which
took the rest of the lane.
right, which is horrible. Huh.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that the
Mm,
any AI in a car will need to consider other drivers. Like we all I think agreed, if the bus had been driven by an AI as well, there would have been no,
yeah.
not even remotely a crash.
no, but what the algorithm failed to take into account is that bus drivers are dicks. Like I think there was that one time when a OC Transpo bus got hit by a train,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not at all surprised. That totally seems like something they'd do,
Hmm.
like try and beat a train across the tracks.
Yeah. Apparently, there were a lot of close calls with that one stop where
Yeah,
it had to cross the tracks.
yeah. And then it
Yeah.
finally crashed because, of course, that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just
A,
remember when that news came out, I was unsurprised knowing OC Transpo drivers.
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, I saw some tweets from someone, on, I guess, a joke they're making about AI and how a lot of companies now consider AI to be just a really elaborate nested if-then conditional, and that it almost sounds like you need to get to that point where, you know, you literally need to treat case like these specific cases where, if this vehicle is trying to overtake me in a lane where there's no divider, then do this, because you almost can't like create AI that can recognize that for itself.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they can, because that's where AI is going, but
Yeah. So I think we're a lot closer than we were. I hope, like, I'm not trying to say that the Google AI bears no responsibility. Obviously, it needs to learn and figure stuff out. But to me, the whole situation reads like a lesson in the fact that perfect drivers are not a thing. And obviously, buses are heavy and not as maneuverable as a car would be, or as smaller vehicles.
Although they try to be.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think the problem is that it was trying to be this a
Yeah,
much smaller vehicle than it was.
yeah. Also, like cabs, like taxis. I think what I've what I've decided, what I've noticed is that bus drivers and taxi drivers, they drive like NHL players play in the playoffs. Like they know exactly what they can get away with in that situation. Even though it's technically not allowed, they know exactly what they're able to do and they just push the limits as much as possible.
Right. Yeah, that really is a good, I guess, metaphor.
metaphor, yeah. Simile.
So did you
I
guys have
think
anything to
so.
add on the
No, I think we're good.
self-driving thing?
I have to review some highway traffic acts, I think.
Um, I guess I should tell you guys I'm probably buying a bike maybe as soon as today, but probably not today.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Exciting.
a giant bike, not like a regular sized bike,
I
but
was gonna
giant.
say.
I'm gonna put a link to it. It's called the Giant Escape One. I'm very excited.
Good.
I really want a like a road bike, like the next level up, but it's almost twice as expensive, and so I'm gonna wait a few years.
Do bikes have good resale value?
Eh,
Decent care of them. Uh, I mean, yeah, they definitely do. It just depends. It really depends on the atmosphere around bikes, around new bikes at the time. If they if the new bike is kind of the next thing, like has the next generation of technology, maybe it's less likely. But if they're basically just iterating on the same thing, which most of them tend to do, then they will keep their value pretty well. I'll put a link if anyone is interested in bikes as much as Nick is, or even less than Nick is, and wants to tell me I should get a better one. I'll put a link to the bike that I'm looking at in our notes.
So what's the fork made out of?
I think
Composite,
they
it
said it was
says.
carbon fiber, but
Yeah, it
let
says
me see.
composite, so
Yeah,
I'm assuming carbon fiber, but
there's
yeah,
there's three levels of escape,
that I
and
saw.
this
Well,
this is the highest
there's
one.
also a
So
0 level, so there are 4 levels.
where's it? I haven't seen Escape Zero. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, this was the kind of the highest end Escape one they had. It's kind of like hybrid with a slight roady preference.
Yeah, that's definitely a hybrid.
But the other one I was looking at, uh, the road bike has hydraulic disc brakes, which just sounds so awesome. So that I think my goal is going to be when we have a house that has an actual spot to lock up a bike in a garage or something, like a much safer place. This is the bike that I'd like to switch to. But that's a dream for now.
Well, dream on, Rob.
Yep. You guys have anything else you want to say this week?
Not particularly.
Mm,
All right. I will end the broadcast then. See you guys later.
Toodaloo.
ciao.